You know that feeling? When science just throws a curveball, something totally unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're diving into exactly that kind of thing. We're talking about manipulating light,
Right.
but maybe not in the ways you'd typically think. Scientists in Germany have done something. Well, it sounds almost like magic.
It really does. They're calling them skyrmion bags of light.
Skyrmion bags.
And look, if you're keen to get your head around some really groundbreaking science, but, without the super dense jargon, this is the deep dive for you.
Definitely. And our info today, it's based on some fascinating material highlighting a study just out in Nature Physics. Came out April 22nd, 2025.
Very recent, yeah.
So our mission, let's say, is pretty straightforward but exciting. We want to figure out what these skyrmion bags actually are.
How they made them happen on this tiny piece of gold.
Exactly. And, why should we care? Why might this bit of fundamental physics matter down the line for, future tech?
Good question. So maybe start with the name, skyrmion. What even is that?
Yeah, what image does that bring up?
Okay, so at its heart, skyrmion is, it's a mathematical model.
Math, okay.
Yeah, it describes these sort of swirling vortex-like things. Think like when you stir milk into coffee and you get that swirl.
Oh, right. I can picture that. The central point with a twist.
Exactly. Like that, but within a field. And for a while, they were just ideas, mathematical tools.
Pure theory.
Pretty much. But then the amazing part, scientists actually started seeing these things, or, phenomena that fit the model.
In the real world.
Yeah, especially in things like magnetic materials. These tiny, stable magnetic swirls, they've become a huge area of research, really hot topic in material science.
Wow. Okay, so it goes from math concept to real-world magnets. And now, this team in Stuttgart, Professor Harold Giessen's group, they're asking, could light do that too? Could light itself make these twisty, swirly patterns?
Precisely. That was the big question. And their method, it's really quite clever.
How'd they do it? Just shine a fancy flashlight?
Huh. Not quite. It involved very carefully aimed laser beams.
Okay.
And these beams interacted with a gold surface. But not just any gold surface.
So it had patterns on it.
Exactly. Incredibly tiny nanoscale patterns etched right onto the gold.
Nanoscale. So unimaginably small.
Oh, yeah. Billionths of a meter, like thousands of times thinner than a human hair. The level of precision just to make these patterns, it's astonishing.
And what shape were these patterns? You said hexagons?
Twisted hexagons, yeah. It seems very specific, doesn't it?
It does. Why that shape? What did it do?
Well, each tiny hexagon acted almost like a mini generator.
Generating what?
Generating a light field that had that skyrmion swirl shape we talked about.
Ah, okay. So the hexagon pattern makes the light swirl.
That's the idea. So picture two sets of these swirling light patterns being created right there on the gold side by side.
Okay, got it. Two light swirls. But you mentioned bags.
Yeah.
How do they go from individual swirls to a bag?
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. The lead scientist, Julian Schwab, he explained it as a superposition.
Superposition. Like waves adding up.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
You have these two skyrmion light fields, the swirls, right?
Right.
And when they overlap in just the right way...
They combine.
They combine, yeah. But not just additively. They interact and form this new, more complex structure, the skyrmion bag. It's the interaction at that tiny scale that creates something new.
So the bag holds multiple swirls inside it.
It can, yes. And that was another huge discovery.
What was?
They figured out they could actually control how many of those individual skyrmions ended up inside the bag.
Wait, really? How could they possibly control that?
It turns out it was linked to the initial setup by adjusting the twist, like the relative angle between the two original light fields they were creating. They could precisely set the number of skyrmions packed into that bag structure.
That's incredible control. It's like they're sculpting light.
That's a great way to put it. Sculpting light into these really complex shapes, patterns that light just wouldn't make on its own naturally.
Amazing. But, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence, right?
Yeah.
Do they get this checked out?
Oh, absolutely. Good science demands it. They collaborated with another group, researchers from the University of Duisburg-Essen.
For what? To try and replicate it.
Exactly. For independent experimental verification, making sure it wasn't just some fluke in their own lab.
Crucial step.
Definitely. And there was theory involved too, right? Understanding why this happens.
Right.
So for that, they worked with scientists at the Techni in Haifa.
Ah, for the modeling side.
Precisely. building the sophisticated theoretical models needed to really make sense of what they were observing experimentally.
Okay, so they've got experimental backup, theoretical backup.
It sounds solid.
It seems very robust.
Yes. Which brings us back to the why should we care question. I mean, it sounds fascinating, skyrmion bags of light on gold.
Yeah.
But it also sounds very fundamental, like basic science. And you're right, it absolutely is fundamental research at this point. They're pushing the edges of what we know about light and matter interaction.
Updates.
But it's precisely because these light field skyrmions have such weird and wonderful properties that people are getting excited about potential uses down the road.
Okay, like what? What did Professor Geeson suggest?
He specifically mentioned microscopy.
Microscopy. Seeing small things.
Seeing things really, really small. He pointed out that, okay, maybe the gold surface they used isn't perfect for every application. They need to explore their materials.
Sure.
But the concept could lead to new kinds of specialized microscopes.
Specialized how? What would be different?
Well, you know, there's a limit to how much detail you can see with light. It's called the diffraction limit, set by the wavelength of the light itself.
Right, like light waves are too big to feel features smaller than their own wavelength, basically?
Kind of, yeah. It blurs things out at a certain point. But these skyrmion structures, because of their unique properties, they might offer a way to get around that limit, to achieve resolution beyond what the wavelength of light would normally allow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So seeing details far smaller that we can currently image with light microscopes?
That's the potential holy grail, yes.
That would be revolutionary. Think about biology, material science.
Absolutely. Imagine looking at living cells or the structure of new materials with that kind of unprecedented detail, the discoveries that could unlock.
Yeah, incredible. But still a way off, you think?
Oh, for sure. This is the foundational step. But creating and controlling these intricate light patterns at the nano level, it just cracks open a whole new toolbox for interacting with light and matter. Microscopy is maybe the most obvious potential application right now, but who knows?
Okay, let's try and boil this down. What are the absolute key takeaways from this deep dive?
All right, first up, scientists have made these really complex, swirly, vortex-like things out of light. They call them skyrmion bags.
And they did this on a gold surface using lasers that interacted with super tiny, specially designed nano patterns, these twisted hexagons.
Yeah. And crucially, they showed they can control what's inside these bags, specifically the number of smaller skyrmions within them, just by adjusting the twist between the initial light fields they created. Remarkable control.
And while it's very much fundamental physics today,
Right.
this breakthrough really hints at future possibilities. Especially maybe for building microscopes that could see things in way more detail than ever before.
Exactly. It's a fantastic example of how exploring the basic rules of the universe can sometimes lead, maybe unexpectedly, towards really practical, transformative technologies later on.
It really is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sculpting light at that tiny scale to create completely new structures, it does make you think. Well, if we can gain this kind of control over something like light, creating structures it doesn't normally form, what other fundamental limits are out there? You know, things we think are fixed rules that might actually be overcome with just the right kind of cleverness, the right innovative twist. What other barriers are just waiting for us to figure out how to reshape them?
That is definitely something to ponder.